it was never good for men to be alone? It was never good for women to be alone, but for entirely different reasons. And yes, sometimes women did band together, but women were alone. All alone. And if you've ever read the book, The Red Tent, you may think you know the story of Dinah, the only daughter to the patriarch Jacob, who fathered 12 sons. Yeah, the Bible, it certainly does say that Dinah lay with a man before she's married. But it also says that that man forced her. And that, my friends, is an entirely different thing.
When the abominable thing happened, I closed my eyes and everything went dark. My brothers avenged me with bloodshed. They killed all the men in the city, including Shechem, who took me in violence and pretended it was love. My brothers told my father I should not be treated as a whore. The very word, whore, cut my heart to pieces and I melted into the floor like wax. You heard what Hamar said. You heard the king barter with my father to save his own skin. You heard my father accept the bloody barter. My virginity for a man's life. You heard my brother's piercing war cries. But you never heard me. You never heard my pain. Never heard my silent cries. So now, hear me. I know your stories, let me add mine. Listen. There were more than 12 children born to Jacob and Leah and Rachel. The 12 were boys, and I was the only daughter. I was born to the lesser wife, Leah. My father was tricked into marrying her by my grandfather. Now, you would think that with 12 boys and me being the only girl, I'd be the princess. It wasn't like that. Everyone vied for the attention of our 4 mothers, and especially my father, Jacob, who always seemed to be in the middle of a dispute, either with our mothers or our grandfather. When he wasn't doing that, he was talking to some invisible person he called El. I would come to find out later, El had many names. Come to find that I need to call some of those names myself. We were in the city of Shechem, and I begged my father to let me see some of this city. He was nervous about letting me go, but I was strong-willed, and I just insisted. He'd be pretty pitiful when it came to my pleadings. I was walking through a beautiful meadow to see some of the women in the city when an ugly thing happened. King's son, Shechem, looked over my way. I didn't know he was the king's son at the time. I tried to ignore him, but I could feel his eyes on me, his eyes burning me. I looked this way briefly and then stepped my head back, focused on a flower, a blade of grass, anything to keep from staring back. The next thing I knew, he was where I was, and he grabbed my arm. too bizarre for me to understand. You see, I knew a different kind of love. I saw the love that my father had for my mother, Rachel. Yes, even though Leah was my birth mother, we children considered all our father's wives to be our mothers. They quarreled, no doubt of that, but there was love in our compound. And I was the only daughter. And so I was richly blessed by 4 mothers who counseled me in the ways of a woman's body and in the ways of men. They taught me what to look for and how to care for the household I would one day have. And even though we all knew Rachel was the favorite, my father had compassion on my birth mother, Leah. He consulted with both of them on everything. He loved his whole family. He was a father to us and husband to all his wives. After the abominable thing happened, my brothers were so angry. They were ready to kill. But my father said no. He talked about being embarrassed, ashamed if they avenged my honor. But he never talked about my shame. And he could not stop the bloodshed. First mine when Shechem robbed me of my purity, and then the blood of all the men in Shechem. For me, that blood, the blood my brothers spilled when they killed them all, every one of them, found its way to my hands. I began to blame myself. If I hadn't been in the city that day, if I hadn't dressed in the beautiful scarf that Rachel made up her loom and dyed in the beautiful colors of our sunsets. It was my mother and Rachel who brought me back from the dead. They said that our law teaches that a virgin remains a virgin even after a man forces himself. That the blood guilt is on the perpetrator, not the victim. And that God gives me the freedom to be unashamed even after such a violation. The blood guilt is on the hands of your bloodthirsty brothers, they told me. The blood is on the hands of the arrogant prince whose false love would not let him wait for your hand in marriage. And with shame, they said my father was wrong to agree to give me to such a brutal and violent man. I never married after that. The men saw me as damaged. But the Lord saw me in a completely new way. I will be your husband, he told me. And he walked with me everywhere after that. And no man ever hurt me like that again. Now I understand you women make your own decisions about whom you will marry. May I give you some advice? Choose the man who is kind and wise, not the one who says he can't wait for you. Choose the one who is willing to wait